coming down.
You don't have your own camera, Dave.
That's
Sorry,
cool.
bro.
That's all right. Sorry, dude. It's all right, bro.
We gotta focus on the talent now. You know what I mean? All right. How's it, everyone? And welcome to another episode of Culture the Podcast. This is gonna be a special episode. This is gonna be a mashup collaboration with Hardwood Rod.
Hardwood Rod is in the building.
Hardwood Rod. So we're gonna get into a little bit of where he started with the podcast, with his own podcast, and also cinematography.
Yeah.
Cinematography and all that stuff. But we'll get into all that.
Slash.
Slash entrepreneur.
Yeah, we'll get into all
everything,
that.
Slash Bezos.
Yeah.
Slash,
Yeah, and we want to get into what you guys are doing over here too, and what brings the culture to life on the balcony, man.
For sure.
Yeah,
This
on
is
the
a trip.
balcony. Yeah.
This is a trip because this is the first time we've had to actually figure out our stuff, our audio, our cameras, our everything, and then integrate his stuff as well. So we'll make sure that we got everything. So this may be a choppy podcast, but I mean, we'll make it work either way.
Nah, man, it's gonna be smooth as this thing right here, man. So.
now Roman, 1,000% in the sun.
Yeah, all right.
You good there?
Yeah, we're good.
All right.
And we got a nice day out today, man.
It is.
We can't ask for anything else.
It
Man.
is nice.
It's a
I
nice.
should ask you right now. Your podcast, you curse?
Oh, it's rated R, man.
Rated R?
Rated R for horror.
Ours gets rated X sometimes, so it's pretty cool. So we'll
Oh,
see how it all
okay.
works out.
In the best ways.
So Hardwood Rod. Rodrigo's your name, obviously. So that's what. So the hardwood. Where's the hardwood come from?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, man. But as Roman knows, I had a podcast way back in like college. I started out, but it wasn't even called a podcast.
Right.
We was just like audio bites.
Mm-hmm.
We would have people guests. I think one of our friends was on, and then we just talk.
Mm-hmm.
But podcasts got popular back 10 years ago, and
Yeah.
when I started the podcast, it was like a basketball podcast.
Okay.
So hence the Hardwood,
Right.
and Rod. So we kind of just put it together, and Hardwood Rod Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I took a little break, and then wanted kind of to reinvent myself a little bit,
Mhm.
make it a little more modern, and not just stay on one topic.
Right.
And they, even though like they do recommend if you start a podcast, concentrate on a niche.
Right. Yeah,
But
I hear that a lot, but I find that like, especially with conversations that we have, you get into broad scopes. Like it's always kind of like, hey, I got you on here to talk about this, and then you guys start evolving the conversation.
Yeah.
And it really like it doesn't end up.
It's
always-
hard to just keep it into one thing.
To
Yeah.
touch on that, so let's say I did keep my podcast just strictly talking about basketball.
Mhm.
The episodes, I mean, trades are just happening right now. Like literally,
Right.
we just passed the NBA trade deadline, and in 2 years, like players are moving all around, and like episodes don't age. Like
They don't
you
age
know what I
well,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah. So like things you talked about in the past, who wants to talk about like what happened like 2 years ago, right?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
whatever. So what I like about this is that I'm bringing new guests every single week, and they bring a different story, right?
Right.
And I like to concentrate on more of their craft and their culture, and that's kind of like the theme of the whole podcast.
That's kind of. I thought it was kind of not ironic, but I thought it was kind of a cool collaboration because I was watching a couple of your podcasts and I was like, this is a similar style. I noticed that a lot of your podcasts, maybe the earlier ones, were really like Latino and Hispanic kind of like influenced or
Yeah.
like focused. Like you had a lot of like
It
almost
definitely
like you're
grew.
kind of build up the culture kind of thing, or
Yeah.
like highlight people from the culture that are doing their thing in their
Exactly.
realm, right?
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty dope.
No,
Is that something that you focused on, or is that something that just kind of like happened?
well, like when I first started it off, right? You kind of gravitate more towards people that you know, right?
Right.
And right off the bat, Roman was on like the first 10 episodes. He was one of them, and it's just people that that probably will bring some like flavor to the podcast, but at the same time, I come from a Hispanic background, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was born in Paramount, California.
Okay.
Grew up in Long Beach, so I'm all about bringing the local community and like people that have different unique stories, right?
Yeah.
So, but as you grow, and you'll notice if you start from episode 1 on, like I start bringing different people from different countries.
Right.
We're talking about things from like people that were starving in Russia and living in Siberia to like people just across the street talking how they started their own business.
Right.
But everybody has a unique story, and what I like about talking about different people is that they all have a passion and they all go about different ways, right? And we're all creators at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like how we evolved.
So how did you do that, like evolve? Because you started with like your close friends, and then it's kind of expanding. So how do you do it now? Do you just reach out to people that you find interesting?
There's a lot of ways, Well, first, I'm still bringing friends on, man.
Yeah.
So, we still need to get another episode with you on, man. The cook-off part 2, man, because we need to do a live cook-off.
Oh, hey, man, I'm down with that.
But there's a lot of forums that you reach out to. There's websites that you just literally go on, and it's called Podmatch, and you just boom,
That's wild.
Automatically that website automatically like suggests like, oh, this would be a perfect guest for you, or vice versa if you're looking for a podcast to be on
for like collaborations and stuff.
Yeah. So that's another one that I use, and then also people refer me like, hey, like I have a friend, I have a business, and would be cool to be on your podcast. And I bring them over,
Yeah,
so,
that's one of the things that we struggle with. So initially, when our podcast started, it was myself. I wanted to do a podcast, influenced a lot by like Joe Rogan and a lot of stuff that was going on, and it was a lot of what was going on culturally. You know what I mean? It was like we have a lot of. It was like what I thought at the time was like a lot of division or a lot of separation in what was going on, but little did we find out till just recently how bad it would get. But it was like people aren't having conversations, you know what I mean? And I thought of it more of like, there's people that I know, like Roman, I'd worked with him for, 6-7 years at the time. And I barely knew anything about him, I knew enough about him that we'd like shoot the shit at work. And I was like, oh, he's kind of cool. I like to kick it with him. And like what most people would do is go out, have a drink and stuff like that. But a lot of times you can't find the time. So it was kind of like a New Year's resolution. I'm going to dedicate some time to sit there and have people over. Then it became difficult to have people want to be on.
Yeah.
Like I don't want my voice recorded. I don't want to be.
Yeah.
So.
To this day, dude, I find it cringing, like editing the podcast and I like my voice and stuff like that. But like you said, man, it's like we don't get to kind of actually know the person we worked alongside for 6-7 years. But something about being in front of the camera, man, or having the mic on you, that just puts you on the spot. And you become vulnerable to that position, like that moment.
Right.
And once you become vulnerable to that moment, like everything goes out, and people find that authentic, and people love that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's when people like kind of like gravitate towards you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. One thing that we've learned is that you can be super convicted about what you're talking about when you're talking shit with your homies, or when you're like
in your own mind. In your mind, you're like, I'm fully set on this.
Yeah.
And then the camera's rolling, the lights are on, and you're just kind of like. Well, I kind of.
And then you hear somebody else like have a rebuttal or something. It's like, oh shit, that makes sense.
And now you're on the spot because now this is not only is it being recorded, it's gonna go online, and you're like, is this really like?
Yeah.
Is this gonna age well?
Second guessing yourself.
Is this soundbite really gonna age well? Like what's going on with Rogan right now, and the cancel culture, and then him with those soundbites that have him saying the N-word. It's just wild that you're thinking like, well, the culture at the time. And then you can even think back of like some movies that you've watched, like I'll watch like some like Rush Hour and things like that, and I'll just be like, the racial kind of stuff that's like hinted in there, it wasn't bad then, but at the standards that we hold things now, and I don't even know if it's really a standard that we hold things to. it's kind of just like a narrative that's put out there where it's like,
Dude, I've said things where if it was like, if I was a celebrity,
You'd be
man.
screwed. Yeah, no,
You know
I
what
mean, for sure. And that's a crappy
know.
thing about cancel culture. It's like something I did 10 years ago, could come back and haunt me. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, that's
I think Joe Rogan did like the best thing. I mean, we should be able to make mistakes and apologize for
Yeah.
them and
Right.
learn from them. And I think he took the right approach, He didn't try to deny it or say...
Well, he doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah,
man.
true.
Like, he literally goes down like, hey, I did this. Oh, I'm sorry,
But
whatever. But the funny thing about it, like, people are already backing him up. Like, hey, man, like.
But he doesn't have to give,
Yeah.
like he really doesn't.
Yeah.
He's got a fan base that's there, but he
so do you
chose
think he
that.
should though? Do you think it's something that he needed to do?
Well, I think since he has that big contract with Spotify, I feel like Spotify was like, hey, man, just
Nudging him, yeah.
say something.
But do I
Like,
think he had to?
But at
No.
the same time, the Spotify CEO had his back. He's like, nah, we're not taking him
We're
off.
taking him off. And
I think he had to? No. I think it's pretty dope that he took that effort to do it.
Right.
know?
It says
Yeah.
a lot about his character.
Correct.
But see, this is what's kind of crazy about someone in his realm, is that he could do something that he's sincere about, and they're like, oh, Spotify made him do it.
Yeah.
But even then, like me personally, I'm like, Spotify needs him more than he needs Spotify.
Yeah. He could bounce.
He could bounce
whenever
wherever, he
wanted.
could do whatever, and if they want to let him out of his contract, then it is what it is.
Well, he had already a lot of offers, right?
Yeah,
from other,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
And
And he turned him
platform-
down.
Any
right?
platform could kind of like pick him up and really. So it's kind of, it's strange to say that, like, oh yeah, he felt pressure by Spotify to do that or
Yeah.
whatever, because it's like
Well, at the end of the day, man, it's it's business, but at the same time, who has leverage
Right.
in a relationship, right?
Yeah.
For anything,
Right.
And that's a lot of the things that I consider too, is when I'm getting into some sort of a contract or relationship, I always look at the leverage side,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Who has the most
like,
leverage?
Yeah, like, and not to be fucked up, but like I like to have leverage on my side because I like to have control of the situation.
Definitely,
You know what I mean? Because there's
especially
many-
as a creator.
yeah, especially as a creator.
Yeah.
We could dive into that. Ooh, we're going to the deep wood in that,
well,
man.
let's do it. Because I think that's what the biggest commonality that we have is just trying to create content.
Yeah,
We're trying to do what's entertaining to people, appeases people, but at the same time,
yeah,
you have
cool.
to keep in mind cancel culture. You have to keep
True.
in mind, you have to toe the line to a lot of these things.
And also what you dig, you don't want to like do something just to
just
get
to
liked.
appease people, yeah.
Well,
Just-
let's before we get into that, let's like I'm curious, like, what's your background, or like how'd you kind of dive into getting behind the camera, or like what exactly kind of sparked that for you?
So, I was watching the Joe Rogan podcast a lot, and then a couple other podcasts that were coming up, and I was like, this is kind of interesting. And then they were like so, like rough cut, that I was thinking to myself, I was like, I can do that. You know what I mean? And I've always been the type of person where it's like jack of all trades, master of none, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I know if I learned a little bit about cameras and learned a little bit about filming, I could probably do something similar, and I wonder how it would turn out.
Yeah,
So then I went into like this rabbit hole of like watching Peter McKinnon, watching a bunch of other like creators that like do like really good, really high quality content. And I was like, I want to do a podcast like that, where it's like, not necessarily I'm just sitting in front of a mic and there's a microphone in my face. And,
Yeah.
I want the video to be a certain caliber, a certain quality. I want the audio to be a certain caliber, certain quality,
Right.
and then at the same time see how it evolves with like budget restraints and all the other kind of things that we have going on. But so that's how kind of it all started. And then it was like, well, what's the premise? What do I have to offer when it comes to a podcast?
yeah,
So I was like, let me, like, I'm big on understanding other cultures and being kind of like integrated into other cultures.
I think you're dope too because you have your point of view, but you also are pretty open-minded. So
that's the
you're
thing.
willing to hear the other side and willing
Yeah.
to understand or try and understand, why their opinion may differ from
Right.
yours.
Like
so.
I've always specifically, this is just kind of weird because normally in the podcast we don't really get into like how like it all kind of started, but me always as a kid, like I moved around a lot, went to different places. So for me, adapting to the environment was
Yeah.
huge. So if I didn't assimilate to any culture or differences that were happening, moving to Florida, if I moved to Texas, if I moved to if I didn't adapt to those cultural like little idiosyncrasies, I was cast out as that's the weird kid from California. Or that's the guy from LA.
So you actually was like moving from state to state.
Yeah. As a kid, we moved a lot. And even if it wasn't state to state, city to city, you know. And I started realizing like there's different cultures, like the Long Beach culture compared to the South Bay culture, compared to the Watts culture.
I mean, just city to city is a different culture. I mean, state to state, you would say it's a different country.
Right.
I mean, you know what I mean? It's
basically
literally different, different ideologies.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
Totally.
we found that out a couple months ago. Like, God damn, like we're not even in the same country. Like it's like California's its own country.
Right.
Yeah.
And how you deal with things in California is completely different than how other people deal with things. You know, so even like I said it earlier on in one of our podcasts, it was like even in my own household, I grew up with a different culture from my brothers and my sisters. You know, like my brother was into like playing hockey and sports and things like that, and he influenced me on a lot of things, but then I was a lot more like into the streets, doing things, hanging out with like people I probably shouldn't have been hanging out with, learning things and be more streetwise about things.
Well, you adapt to your surroundings too,
exactly. But see, for me, it was difficult because we grew up in like Hawthorne, Lawndale, Gardena areas as kids, and then when we got older, we started living in like really nice neighborhoods like Torrance, Redondo, Orange County at the time, and
man, you were all over the place.
So I would start seeking out like I felt like I didn't really belong when I was in Orange County. I didn't really feel like I belonged with like a bunch of like white kids, you know, that play, you know,
skate
sports or skate. Well, I was into it, like I was influenced by him, but it was like different. It was like everywhere I went, I never felt like I was ever integrated into that culture or they accepted into that culture.
Right.
You know, so I always had to try like twice as hard, 3 times as hard.
Yeah, just to fit in.
Or just to kind of feel like I'm not being judged all the time.
Yeah.
You know? And then, so I would always seek things that would make me feel comfortable, and a lot of the time it was like street culture. You know, it was like hip hop, it was like gangs, it was different things like that. My dad grew up in Lenox and was a gangster from Lenox. So a lot of that influenced like, well, that's my dad. Should I be more like my dad? Should I earn my stripes the way my dad earned his stripes?
Definitely, man.
It was crazy. You know, but at the same time adapting to like different neighborhoods. You know, you live in Torrance, you don't need to do all that stuff. You know, it's like it's a different environment.
So you were all in Torrance, OC, and then you came to Long Beach.
So
obviously you were in a few other states.
So like my timeline, I always say that I grew up in the South Bay, right?
Yeah.
If you look at it chronologically, I probably spent now the least amount of my time in the South
Bay.
Yeah, growing up. But those were the most influential periods in my life that I remembered. They were like the happiest times in my life.
How old were you?
South Bay, so everything kind of revolved around the South Bay.
Yeah.
So we'd always so even if I lived in like Downey, or if I lived here in Long Beach, or I lived in Orange County, we'd always gravitate to the South Bay because most of our family lived in the South Bay. So everything was just kind of like centered around the South Bay.
Naturally, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like everything was that. So I always just consider like I grew up in the South Bay. Like when I go to the South Bay, when I go to Torrance, it feels like home.
Yeah.
You know, when I come here to Long Beach, it's like I like Long Beach. I love Long Beach. I've grown to love Long Beach. It feels like home to a certain extent, but I still feel like I'm an outsider looking in. You know, especially when I talk to like you about like how you grew up and your experiences in Long Beach. It's way more diverse and like liberally kind of like influenced, like more accepting of cultures in that sense, to where it's like some shit like that wouldn't fly in the South Bay.
Yeah.
You know, it was very kind of like, I wouldn't consider it whitewash, but there was just a certain like line. It was like, yeah, we don't really fuck with that.
Yeah.
You know, where here it was like, no, what's the problem? Like, and it's just kind of like weird adapting to that change.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, growing up here for me, like my dad, so I lived in Signal Hill. Signal Hill is like in the middle of Long Beach.
Yeah, it's like a little cluster.
Yeah. But my dad was born and raised in Long Beach, and he was raised right here on Orange, like right by the Salvation Army. Mm-hmm. They like tore down his house and put the Salvation Army there. But like he was surrounded.
He tore down his house. And,
yeah.
Let's just build this. Yeah.
But no, he was surrounded by brothers. I mean, that's who he grew up with. He knew a Black Santa. That was his first. No, African Americans. That's who like he grew up with. You know, his first girlfriend
black people.
was African.
So you're like you're second generation, like
what, Long Beach?
yeah,
No, black.
black, yeah.
You're second
But I'm
generation
saying
black.
like your dad was born in Long Beach.
Correct. Yes.
So yeah, so see, I'm pretty much, first generation that was born here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
or raised in Long Beach.
yeah. So
So
you're
your family is from where normally?
like my dad is from Zacatecas,
Right.
and my mom is from El Salvador.
They came when?
They came when they were like 17, 18, right?
Okay. And then they spend most of their time where here in the
Paramount, pretty much. That's kind of like
They
the
grew
area.
up
Yeah,
in
Paramount. My mom was on like she had some city college,
Mhm.
but for the most part, I didn't know nothing about the streets of Long
Yeah.
Beach or Paramount. When I grew up, so that's why I'm curious. Like you already right off the bat, like your dad already knew everything about
Correct.
the ins and outs.
Yeah. So, but growing up, he made it a point that I hung out. I was cultured, I guess.
Yeah.
He didn't want me to just be. So I grew up in Catholic school, a lot of Asians.
That sounds right.
I see.
Definitely.
I started off in Catholic school also until like third grade.
Yeah. What
And
Catholic
that was
school did you go to?
right here in Paramount, Our Lady.
Oh.
But when I went to public, it was I can still remember to this day. It was like a whole different like animal.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready to go into that.
That was like me. So I first through 12th went to Catholic school, and then went to college, and it was just like party time for me. Like, so I partied a lot in high school, but it was like small. I mean, we had a small.
I think we all did. I mean, when I grew up, I mean, I'm 34, going on 35. So I mean, you're 39, right?
Yeah.
You're
38 or 9.
yeah. So we all grew up where like in high school, man, it was like, I think high school now you look up at it, it's like whoa. Those are high school kids? Like,
Yeah.
they look like
for
little
sure.
kids still.
Yeah.
But back then, we were doing it like 6th, 7th grade. We're macking it up behind the 600 building.
Yeah.
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 You know?
Well, what's crazy with Roman is that his brother went to SC, so it was like high school on another level for him because it's like
Yeah,
it was like
yeah.
D1 high school for him.
Yeah.
you
Kind
know,
of. Yeah.
Where all of us are going to like little shitty backyard parties that would get broken up at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
He's having ragers
Little
down in
crews and stuff
yeah.
like that. Crew life.
So it was, yeah. But I mean, for me, going to college was a bit of a shock because I mean, growing up Catholic school.
And when you say college, was that DH or was that?
No, Cal State Long Beach was the first college I
Yeah.
went to.
Okay.
When I had my film aspirations, but
Wait.
yeah.
So see, I don't know that part about
yeah,
like you went directly in for film for that
yeah.
See, I didn't
Here,
know
let's
that.
reset real quick because we're getting close on the shutters,
Okay.
and then you guys are getting baked right now. So
100 push-ups, bro. Yo, your first guess about with the David Goggins story of this season 3?
Oh,
who
Ron-
is the rapper?
Ron?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was dope.
He met.
No, he
worked
said
with-
yeah.
He worked with Goggins.
His story was dope.
no, you're good. Go ahead, keep talking about.
No,
So-
I don't
So,
even know how
yeah.
to like segue that though. But
I didn't even know about your film aspirations when you started at Cal State, man. I didn't really. I knew you kind of were into it, but I didn't know that that's what you dived into.
correct.
Like,
I mean,
originally.
I think everybody. Well, I mean, everybody has that creative like
Yeah.
bug, and that was what I was trying to do.
How old were you when you went?
Straight out of high school. 18.
Straight out of high school?
Yeah.
So that's what you kind of like aspire to.
Yeah.
You want to be a filmmaker?
Yeah.
What kind of drove? Because I know you like to write, right? As
Correct.
far
Well, so I didn't really realize that
as- until after.
until like college, where I liked writing.
yeah.
I was still like in high school. I wasn't like a big writer.
Yeah.
I didn't mind it, but it wasn't something that like was a fire inside me that was like
Yeah.
burning. It wasn't until like college when I was just doing assignments and stuff.
Holy shit! I'm a journalist.
Well, no,
Yeah.
it was just like it felt good, and I could be funny with it, and it just worked.
Well, that's kind of like the same thing happened to me as far as kind of like falling in love with it, as far as like the process and like the ins and outs. And
Yeah,
being curious about it.
yeah, and then I mean, doing communications at Cal State
Yeah.
Dominguez, I mean, that's where it like really like was like, hey man, you could do this.
Yeah.
Joel Beers, man, he like pulled me aside and was like, hey dude, you could do this if you want.
Who?
Our
I'm like, who? I'm trying to do it. It's been years, man.
let's see, he was like our
Instructor?
Yeah, he was an instructor. He was like the
Beers?
Yeah, he had like the French hat on, but he was
Script development.
He was like a critic. He was a critic writer, but he was teaching us like lead writing.
Oh, okay.
So is that where you guys linked up? You guys linked up in college?
In college, yeah.
I think the first class we had was freaking. It was a bozo class because the freaking instructor did. I think it was
horrible. But no, it was editing class. Yeah, we got paired up in a group.
It was, I forgot the name of the class, but it was the whole production, but it was kind of
like production 101 or something.
Yeah, but literally I could have taught the class.
It was basic. Yeah, super basic.
Yeah.
He had us go on like B&H photo and
like. But that class, that was like one of the best classes.
No, that's kind of funny though, because our first time we ever really hung out was because we got paired up in a group.
Yeah.
And we did an assignment together, and we did like what was it? Commercial or I forgot.
Like a broadcast.
Yeah, it was a fake broadcast, and there was 5 of us, and we managed to be in the same team, and like you already seemed like you knew what was going on and knew what to do, so I just figured you'd been doing that since like forever.
Well, I just got into it just a couple like maybe a year back into it, and literally making like the most like corny ass films and stuff like that. With I literally sold my MPC 4000 for a freaking Sony Bloggy just to create like an idea I had in my head.
Really?
That's pretty dope.
You know what? Remember the MPC 4000?
I don't know what MPC 4000.
Yeah, it's the beat.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so what? You're making beats before that?
I was trying to be a DJ, dude. Like,
so that's sweet.
I mean, just like everybody else back then.
Right.
But it wasn't for me, and I lost money in that because it was like, fuck. If you look at it now, look on eBay.
Yeah.
Like, especially when Kanye dropped that fucking track, everybody was like wanted to get one of those. But like after that, dude, it was like, fuck, let me try to do this. Boom. After that, boom, it's just like, here I am.
No, and you're still doing it.
I'm still doing it.
You are like the Cordell Stewart.
Like I said, if somebody asked me what's your title, what do you do? I couldn't answer that question in one word or one sentence. It's a whole bunch of things that
that's a lot of things. Like with this, it's like, oh, you do podcasts, you're a podcaster.
Yeah.
It's like not necessarily, because
I film having a conversation with my friend.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, when you get it, like, it's like I'm a videographer, I'm a photographer, I'm editor, I do audio.
Yeah.
It's like you do every aspect of it. You know what I mean? To where you kind of like, no, I'm kind of just. So I just label myself as a content creator.
Yeah.
I just create content. That's
even then, I don't even like that.
Yeah.
I feel like, oh, you're a YouTuber? I'm like,
well, see,
no.
that's the thing. And I feel like YouTuber is like oh, you're a little kid, like, playing with YouTube, hoping to get big.
Yeah.
And then it's like, no. And then I think content creator has become like the Target of Walmart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, no, it's Target. It's a little nicer. You're a content creator, but it's like, at the same time, it doesn't pin you as like,
it
doesn't highlight what you're good at.
You know that Batman meme with Robin and Batman slaps the shit out of him?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when they say, you're a content creator?
It just bothers you because it's
so
a lot.
How would you define, what would you use to, if you put a label on yourself, what would you say?
I use content creator. but I get,
what would you say?
But see, I don't know.
The depths of what he deals with as far as.
It's because it's tough, man, because I deal with so many aspects, my day job, right? And then I got my little side companies, right? And then I got other, like, sides.
You are
a legit filmmaker as well, though.
So, like, and then
you're an award-winning filmmaker.
Well, we're talking about, like, the next week, I got this big old thing. I'm literally stressed out. Like, I'm stressed out about it.
Now.
But, like, in a good way.
Yeah.
Like, it's because it's all the planning, right? It's like setting up the call sheet, getting the extras acquainted, getting the rehearsals for the stunt crew. Like,
so you're a booker on top of it all.
Yeah, doing all of that stuff, right? Fucking caterers.
Right. I mean, you're producing. So it's your film.
But I love that part. I love being busy and being in the process.
Right.
But I also had to deal with clients, corporate companies, and it's like there are social medias, right? I'm doing PRs where, like, if you put that out, it's gonna affect the whole company, right?
Right.
But like I told Roman earlier, I would say 60 to 70% I'm like video editing or doing something behind the computer where I'm chopping stuff up. Right. Making it look pretty. Right. And then the rest is social media or on location, shooting or podcasting. So I would say like if I would label myself something, it would be like a brand strategist or some sort of like, you know, like a creative director.
Right. That's what it seems like.
But it's kind of like one day I could be, you know.
You have to wear all the hats.
Yeah.
When you're at a certain budget, like, level, I guess you could say, or I guess like, and I'm speaking out of sheer ignorance here because like this is the extent of what I've delved into as far as creating any kind of cinematography or any kind of like quality video
content
production. Yeah, you know what I mean. But to me, it's just like the small level that I've gone through in this like gambit of making this podcast has been like, oh, I just have a GoPro, so it's like really super low budget. And then the more the budget gets broadened, the more you can either take on all the roles yourself, or you can start to like distribute the roles. So like when we have our behind the scenes guy doing the production stuff, I can now say, okay, cool, I got like a producer.
Yeah.
Because now, not so much the budget, but we've gotten to that point to where I either need somebody or I can afford to have somebody run it.
And right now, working on the feature film right now, it's like I'm nothing without the cast or the people that are actually helping out, right? It's like, and I've learned that along the way that you're gonna need somebody to help you out with that. Like I can't do everything.
You can't do everything.
And even though as much as that, you know, you like your little baby, you want to hold it tight and have nobody touch it. You know, if you want it to be the best thing possible, you're gonna have to extend your arms, right?
Trust it.
Like, and you might fall into this too, but like, I like to do a lot of things at once, and I only have two hands.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, if A person, B person can help you out, that just, you know, gives you more opportunity to do something else, right? And that's something where, like, in the next 5 years, that I want to have a whole freaking team, and start building some freaking crazy shit, man. Because that's my dream, right? Get your place, you know, build content, talk with clients, and build some dope shit.
No, that's what I was gonna ask you. Like, so 5 years from now, where do you see your like Hardwood Rod going, or
the podcast,
or just you know, like
what is your brand, I guess, look like?
Well, like the whole umbrella is called Reliant Media.
Mm-hmm.
And that pretty much, like, it's the umbrella of like the film production, like the podcast. Like sooner or later, there's gonna be some like apparel. I do have some, but it's like, you know, it's just regular stuff on shirts. But
it's like merch at this point.
Yeah,
it's not so much apparel, but it's merch.
But it's funny because I just got this domain too. I want to do some educational videos for like kids.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's something that I just got started late last year and going into this year. But pretty much, like, I want to do that whole fucking thing. You know what I mean? Like
educational videos. As
kids, as far as
like media, or like just anything. Like,
I'm working on some stuff behind the scenes with this. She owns like a private school in Arizona, and we're working on these videos, right, for kids, and they have like these characters, and you know, this is like literally like, I would say, my day job right now, because it literally takes probably like 120 hours in a month because it's a big thing. So I kind of like piggybacked off that a little bit, and it's like, man, we all have kids. Do they go on Channel 7 to watch cartoons anymore? No, right? Where they go?
YouTube or Disney Plus.
And they're not watching something in particular.
Well, so they start, because you're controlling the content right now.
Yeah, exactly.
When they start
controlling the content,
being able to control, they're like,
people unwrapping, unboxing shit.
But the whole thing about YouTube is that YouTube wants you, I mean, us, but in this sense, we're talking about like the kid stuff. They want them to go into this rabbit hole, right?
Correct. Just like us.
Right? Like after the video, it goes on to the next one. It goes to the next one. It goes to the next one. And at the same time, there's money being made. Like boom, 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 boom. It's a whole circle, like circulation. Like, so my thing is like, if my 3-year-old, 7-year-old, 9-year-old is watching like random videos and they're entertained by just some like pink pig that's just dancing around, you know.
Right.
I mean, anything. I can create that in my sleep, you know, do a couple videos and just let it see what happens on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, like I like to create at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I have all the assets I need, and it's like, well, why not just make some educational videos for kids?
So like educational, what are you talking about? Like ABCs or like?
No, it would be more for like math.
Okay.
Because I think it's something where ABCs is like, okay, yeah, I get it, but
Yeah.
like I feel like I could do more with 1, 2, 3s, right?
Right.
I could do more with that. I could do different themes and then just make it fun.
Yeah.
But that's just something like in the back burner, and
Right,
that's something that I just delved into.
No, I mean, especially with the current like state of the world, I mean,
Yeah.
and like mandates and stuff, a lot of people are ready to just be like, pull kids out of school and just. So I mean, it is a good.
It's an untapped, or not so much untapped, but it's definitely a
market that's
waiting to be exploited. Not
correct.
exploited. I don't want to
but
use
just
those
like
words,
thrive.
But yeah,
waiting to blow up. I mean, it
with some
really.
stuff.
I mean, yeah.
Well, yeah, I do definitely think that school, and we could all agree on this. School is very outdated already, the way it is.
Yeah, definitely.
But my question, like being the devil's advocate, it would be like, what would it be like the alternate, right? What would it be the
counterpoint to it?
Yeah, like what would you do? Obviously, we realize that virtual learning is not the solution.
Right.
Correct.
I mean, at least from my experience, my kid changed for the better when he went back to school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely. I think. Oh.
So like the things like being stuck in your room and looking at a screen, I could see the whole toll that took my kid, man. Like
I mean, the social aspect of
the
going
social
to school
aspect is what really matters.
Is huge.
I feel like it's important.
It's very huge.
Yeah.
That's why, like, if we did choose to take our kids out of
Yeah.
school, they'd have to be like in a ton of extracurricular, like sports or something, you know.
But I think there's probably a pretty cool balance in both, because me personally, we've talked about me like suffering with like things like dyslexia and stuff like that, where it's hard for me to just sit there and sit in a class and put pen to paper and just kind of like look at stuff and stay and keep my attention in that realm. But
Definitely,
whenever it was
especially for creators, because every
Yeah.
kid is different too.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they all learn different.
No,
and
the
grading thing is the thing that I would change. But go on.
yeah, but then when you have, I used to love like when it was like we'd sit down at a computer and then it'd be like, oh, you're doing your spelling test on the computer, and then like there was visuals that I could associate to it.
Yeah.
It made things just easier for me. It made things make more sense for me.
It was easier for you specifically to
grasp.
comprehend. Yeah.
You know, but then you still have the same social aspects of recess, you know, the disruptive kid in the class that makes everybody laugh, you know, because I feel like that molds society in itself.
All of that is like
important.
Correct.
Important.
Yes.
Important for social behavior, important for kids in general. But it's something that could be cool where it's like, hey guys, so the lesson today is, you know, Rod's math class, you know, and then they put it on and then they do like a short segment of teaching with the visual aspect of it, and then go into the lesson.
Yeah, no, first, second, third grade. All my kids.
Thing. So this
had that.
I don't think this lady's gonna be listening to this, but what she's doing is different, right? She's making it visual, and she's doing these timetables like very unique, right? Where it's like using your hand, and it's like boom, 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 right, for each times table.
Right.
But she's creating these programs, these sheets, and these videos, like, you know, to be visually for the, you know.
So you're teaming up with the teacher, right?
Yeah. Well, she has this whole kind of
little method.
She has her curriculum.
She has her little method that
nobody else is doing it.
Right.
And supposedly back then she had an offer from Disney and she turned it off because she has these characters.
Yeah.
Right? She's like copywriting all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
she's
but yeah. So supposedly she had Disney and that's her biggest regret. Like, you know, back then. But that's her.
We'll see. I mean, but yeah, it's definitely something that I think can evolve.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
I feel like, well, I told this to my wife. I was like, man, I think kids shouldn't be like in class like all the 9-year-olds shouldn't be all with a 9-year-old. I feel like every kid is different. It should be.
I mean, it's tough, right?
It should be with like a kid that likes to, I don't know, like do something like different versus the kid is very like math driven.
Right.
Like
Definitely.
Like, math is my
focus.
math is my like Achilles heel, man. Like math is like my worst enemy.
Really?
Going to college, like I never liked math.
Right.
I'm more of a visual learner, like to like in my hands, like I like to make
But
things.
and so that's like.
So like every kid, like I was saying, every kid would be like with that group.
Right.
But at the end of the day, then like damn, it wouldn't work because then it's like there's other factors that come
I think
into play.
exactly. There are other factors,
Yeah.
and what sucks now is like we have just like a standard way of grading people. So like you're an intelligent dude. Like I know you personally. You're smart.
I couldn't build a bridge for shit. Right? Like,
but I mean, you do a lot of other things really well, and you know, if we were all in the 3rd grade, I'm pretty good at math. I was always good at math.
yeah,
you
civil
know?
engineer,
and
you know,
I would score well, and I would be touted up like and be made to feel good.
How that make me feel?
Correct.
Yeah,
well, no, that's what my daughter was kind of going through,
Yeah.
you know, last year. And it was like, you know what? Like I sat with her and worked with her, and she knows it. She just needs it like hands on. She needs to see it visually, and she just learns differently.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how a lot of people are. But because of the curriculum, it's like, oh no, she scored horribly on her test, and it's like, oh, what the
grading system?
No way.
They need to scrap it.
Correct.
Where like it's like damn, I'm this, I'm that. Like that.
I mean, look at you now though. You're ambitious. You're doing your thing. You're literally /
Toro for life.
Yeah. Toros for life. But
so
shout out.
There's a like a political cartoon that shows like the like Common Core or American style of grading, and it's like it's a fish in a fishbowl, it's a monkey, it's a lion, and like a bear.
Oh yeah,
right?
I think I've seen this.
And then it's just like, okay guys, so the test today is climbing a tree.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like you're looking at the fish and you're like, oh, you're an idiot. You don't know how you can't climb a tree. You can't. So you fail. You're a failure. And that's basically the premise of how our educational system is set up.
Yeah.
Like if you don't fit into this kind of like cookie cutter way of judging,
you're dumb.
Education.
You probably need more
and
you need help.
intelligence.
Name this segment cookie cutter era, or you know that's a good term right there, cookie cutter. That's what it is.
Yeah.
For sure.
For everything though.
Yeah.
It's crazy. We could dive into that like another episode, but there's a bunch of stuff.
You get into social norms and all kinds of things, and social kind of like socially defined. I mean, it all has to do with culture. You know what I mean? When it comes down to it, it's like the American culture has always been like a culture that's been cultivated in a lot of like.
Dude, it's everywhere.
Well, it's just fucked up. So if you look at the American culture is basically the British culture that's been brought over here and then reformed in a way where it's always been to take advantage of the lesser class.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate, like that's the epitome of what American culture is.
Look at sports, man. We can dive into that.
Everything. And then you have but we're also the land of the free. So everyone come here, we are welcoming, we are all encompassing, and we are accepting of all cultures, not realizing that it's a beautiful thought, but in actuality, the way it's played out is that your culture clashes with your culture, clashes with your culture, clashes with your culture. And there's no way you're going to find a common thread amongst all of those cultures to understand that this is now the American culture.
Yeah.
So it's just this common like tug of war of like, okay, but we're going to say that this is the American culture. But wait, that excludes me, I'm Muslim.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm Christian. Excludes me, I'm gay. Excludes me, I'm transgender. Excludes me, I'm black. And it's just kind of like, okay, I guess there is no American culture. Right. American culture is just kind of like, let's figure shit out.
Correct.
So melting pot. Right?
That I think is true.
Yeah, it's you look at every other country, it's homogenized.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Spain is Spain. Italy is
It's
Italy.
when we start putting like, when we start labeling it like this is American culture is when we start failing, you know, because it really is just keep growing. You know, I mean, it worked early on. Bunch of immigrants came over and they've kind of figured a way out.
It's because everybody was an immigrant.
Correct.
know? And
Yes.
it's like the most dominant immigrant was the ones that kind of
And then they started saying, no, this is the way it should be.
right.
You know, and then it's like, oh well, you know what? Then
Like we hold the
Should start-
majority over here, guys.
correct.
So we're gonna call the shots a little bit.
Correct.
And then it was like, okay, you guys hold the majority maybe in who's in positions of power, but then all of a sudden it's like, but there's a lot more of us over here than there are
Right.
of you
And,
over there.
I mean that's why I love Long Beach, right? I mean, not to be.
It kind of goes full circle,
Correct,
circling back.
Correct, because it is like this melting pot, and for the most part, it is pretty open-minded here, you know, and they are pretty accepting of everybody, and you know, I dig the culture here,
Mm-hmm.
and that to me, I mean, fortunately for me, I was able to be born and raised here in this area, so you know, it is
Lucky you, homie. Lucky fucking you. The rest of us
but it,
have been raised in.
I mean, not at all.
Shitholes.
But I do have a more open mind to a lot of things, you know, and see
Yeah.
other things. So
But I mean, at times it becomes a hindrance, you know, because when you start to when you try to be too inclusive at times, there's like, hey, all right, guys, where do we draw the line? Like, where are we going here? Like, this is like, there's only so much of the spectrum that we can keep open. You know, we need to have some commonality, some common ground to kind of pendulum back to, which is I feel like kind of what's going on with society now. It's like we got these pendulum swings where it's like, oh, this side, and oh, now this side, and like, oh, we're too strict, and now we're not strict enough, and all this other
yeah,
stuff.
well, I think a lot of that is like communication, like getting rid of bias, because that I think is a huge fault of many people. It's like you have a bias on things.
You think you can get rid of bias?
No,
think
you can't get rid of bias, but you can have an understanding by
It's
communicating.
hard to understand though. Like for me, like, I always kind of like take a step back and be like, okay,
that's
fine. Like I'm not gonna be like, nah, I'm not out in the street like going crazy over some like freaking agenda. Like you know what I mean? Like
that's
whatever.
Or a
like,
narrative, right?
yeah. So it's like, I mean, it's like somebody's ego needs to just like take a step back and like, all right.
It
like,
is definitely with
you know?
everything. I mean,
for the better of the whole fucking community or whatever it is.
Right.
Like, just kind of take the pill. Fuck it.
I feel like there's not enough humble people in society.
Yeah.
It's like, they feel like entitled, right? To,
Yeah.
to like something and they don't want to let go of it.
You
I
think
can
social
agree.
media has a lot to do with it?
Social media is a weapon.
I definitely
It's a
agree
weapon.
with
It's
that.
I think social media. We'll dive into it, man. But I feel like
Let's get into it. We're getting into the deep dive. We got
Oh,
39 seconds.
This is pretty. This is
and
flying.
we're gonna stop there and we'll see you on the other side,
Yeah,
guys.
we'll get a little lighter.
So, you guys want to call that one? You want to call it as a show, and then we'll
We'll
just
dive
back,
into
or you
part
want
two.
or you want to reset everything and go back into it.
Let's
Nah.
go back into it, man.
Or you gotta be
if
somewhere.
you
got
can.
somewhere reason?
Damn, man, I want to dive into it too. Yeah, I think that's it, man.
All right,
Sorry,
cool.
I mean, I could. Yeah, 10 seconds left.
Well, it's a 5-minute buffer, but
Yeah,
we can reset. It's up to you. Whatever you want to do.
I mean, we could dive into.
You got to
like,
bounce.
Well, I mean, I could just.
If you got somewhere you got to be,
30
we can do the next episode.
No, well, I want to dive into like how.
It seems like you got something on your chest.
Yeah.
We'll be right back. We're gonna go ahead. We're gonna reset, and we'll be right back.
Do you have to be somewhere then?
I don't got.
And I've been down